Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL chapter 38, section 18, and the governor's July 16, 2022 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the select board will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend the meeting in person. For those who wish, they may do so remotely. For those who are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A, section 20F, after notifying the chair of a public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body, and may transmit the meeting for any medium. Beginning the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. This meeting is being recorded by the Berkshire Eagle, Berkshire Edge, CTSB, and the town of Great Barrington, as well as members of the public. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. First on the agenda is approval of minutes. And we have January 30th, 2023 and February 13th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of January 30th, 2023 and February 13th, 2023.
I was missing on the 13th, so I can only vote on the 30th.
Okay, so if you we'll do one at a time.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of January 30th, 2023.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, and since we're all in person, it's voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Next.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of February 13th, 2023.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And one abstention. So it's unanimous. Select board's announcements and statements. Barbie?
I just wanted to say I had read a few weeks back about our Berkshire School, Hills Regional School District, and how they're moving forward with the venture, if you will, joining the schools. I'm glad to see that it's moving forward. The 50% of the kids not going to college, I think it's important to our town and for those kids to get a trade and be productive. I'm glad that that's going forward.
Thank you, Dr. Eric?
Nothing at this time. Thank
Okay.
you.
Please. So I just have a few process things about tonight's meeting. I'll have a longer statement before the public hearing. So I just want to go through what our definition of a citizen is before we get to public hearing. This is both for public comment at the public hearing and for citizen speak. Our select board policy says a citizen is a primary resident of Great Barrington and Housatonic, a homeowner or a renter, a property owner in Great Barrington or Housatonic, or a business owner operator with a base of operations located in Great Barrington and Housatonic. That's the people that we allow to speak at both our public hearings and citizens speak. At the end of the meeting, we'll still have citizens speak, but our rules are that the airport or any public hearing that we're in the middle of, you cannot speak on that during citizen speak. It will only be during public comment. The other is, this is our first hybrid meeting where we've had this many people. So when we get to public comment, what I'll do is I'll alternate between in-person and Zoom. So it just go back and forth until everyone's done speaking. That seems to be the fairest way of doing it. Mark, town manager's report.
Okay, I just have a few items for this evening. First up is Housatonic Waterworks, and for anyone that missed it, our consultants presented the appraisal report last Thursday night. It's posted in 2 locations on our website. It's on the homepage, and it's also under the Housatonic Waterworks tab on the select board page of our website. A copy of the recording of that meeting is also posted on our YouTube channel, which can be found through the direct link on our homepage, and it's right in the bottom left corner under the Citizen Action Center. So If anyone has any difficulty finding it, they can just reach out to my office. Short-term rentals, or the short-term rental update for the evening is that staff continues to work with and meet with GovOS. We meet with their team weekly. Our payment gateway is set up and staff has been trained on that payment gateway. So that portion of the program. The team at GovOS is now busy matching up all the live STR ads that are posted on all the various short-term rental websites right now with the parcel data that we provided them a few months ago. Staff training on the registration portal will begin in March, and our PR campaign will begin shortly. And that includes a letter being mailed to every short-term rental host, and that's roughly 200, 220, I believe, in town. So you will receive a letter from us very soon. But I just have two brief add-ons for tonight. First off, I just wanted to mention that there was an accident this morning. Most of you probably are aware. It was a minor accident in front of the Monument Mountain Regional High School. And for those of you that missed the update that I shared during our priority planning session a few weeks ago, I'll just share it again. And that's that Mass DOT completed a build out of the buffered right turning lane, which is meant to improve visibility for cars exiting the high school. So you'll probably notice that, or I think that happened late summer this year. The next step will be that the intersection conflict warning system will be installed. Mass DOT is just waiting on that system to arrive now. And once installed, cars exiting the school will be warned when a vehicle is approaching. So in this particular accident, I don't think it would have prevented it because it was a southbound car that collided with a northbound car. So I just wanted to let you know that our plans are still moving forward with that. We're just waiting again on the signage to arrive. The last item I have on my list for this evening is the proposed fiscal 24 budget, which will be presented tomorrow night for the first time, is posted on our website. It's right on the homepage for anyone that would like to take a look at it. There are also paper copies and binders printed, and they're available for viewing at our town clerk's office. And there's one copy at each of the libraries, so Ramsdell and Mason. That's all I have.
Thank you. Licenses and permits. Tiffany Riva and Amanda Campaign Railroad Street Youth Project for a temporary entertainment license on Saturday, May 20th, 2023, from 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. in Memorial Field and Memorial Field Skate Park. Do you have a motion?
I make a motion to grant a temporary entertainment license to Tiffany Riva and Amanda Payne of Railroad Street Youth Project for Saturday, May 20th, 2023, from 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Memorial Field and Skate Park.
Do you have a second? So I have a motion and a second. Tiffany or Amanda? Your mics are open. Do you just want to tell us what this event is? It's for the public?
Hi, everybody. This is Tiffany. Thank you so much. Yes, this is our annual Culinary Arts Apprenticeship Dinner. We are planning to follow the same model we did last year, which is youth chefs preparing a beautiful, delicious meal for community members and donors on Memorial Field. We do have approval from Parks and Rec. The event will be from 5:30 to about 9. It will have a live auction. There will be beer and wine served. We do not charge for that. Guests purchase tickets at the event. It's just an incredible night to celebrate young people.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Andrew Davis, IE Inc. for a temporary one-day beer and wine license for a cookout on Sunday, March 12th, 2023, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. at 380B State Road. Do you have a motion?
I make a motion to grant a temporary one-day beer and wine license for a cookout to Andrew Davis of IE of Incorporated on Sunday, March 12th, 2023, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. at 380B State Road.
Second. Andrew, this is a private event, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we won't ask you to publicize it.
Oh, wait, maybe I misspoke. So it's an event being held at Ski Butternut. IE Inc. is the food and beverage portion of Ski Butternut. It's a separate business, but we filed for a separate 1-day liquor license because the event will be held on neither building that has a liquor license.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
New business. Select board to vote for Leora Khan to the cultural council. Do you have a motion?
I make a motion to vote, Leora Khan to the cultural council.
Any questions from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Congratulations and thank you for volunteering. The fine-free library proposal.
Okay, so included in your packet for this evening is an executive summary that proposes to eliminate certain fines at the library. And Samara Klein, our library director, is here to explain that in more detail.
Hi, my name is Samara Klein, and I'm the director of the Great Barrington Libraries. I'm here with my colleague, Christine Warner, who is the supervisor of adult circulation. And we are here today to propose that you vote in favor of the Great Barrington Libraries becoming fine-free. I'm first going to give you a quick background on our current fining protocol and situation. Christine is then going to tell you about why we should become fine-free, and then we will make our recommendation. Okay, so currently all card-holding patrons of Great Barrington Libraries may borrow books for 3 weeks. That has an automatic renewal of 3 weeks. And after that, fines are incurred at a rate of 10 cents a day until $3 a book. DVDs are for 1 week with automatic renewal for 1 week. Fines are incurred at a rate of $1 a day until $5 a DVD where it's capped. Hotspots, which allow for internet connectivity, can be borrowed for 2 weeks with automatic renewal, after which fines are incurred at a rate of $5 a day. Museum passes are available for 1 day without renewal, after which fines are incurred at a rate of $10 a day. Things, which are from the Library of Things at Ramsdale Library, are available for 3 weeks without renewal. An item is marked lost when it's not returned on time. And then the lost fees are expunged if and when the item is returned. When a patron has $10 in fines, their account is blocked. If after the second renewal period, an item is overdue another 28 days, it is considered lost. And the patron is billed for the full cost of the item plus the fines that they incurred. Patrons can pay directly via CW Mars, which is our library consortium. It stands for Central Western Massachusetts Automated Resource Sharing, or they can simply replace the item. If the item is not paid for or replaced, the patron's card is suspended. Hi. Just a few facts. In 2019, the American Library Association passed a resolution on monetary library fines as a form of social inequality. It's a barrier to knowledge. It's a barrier to families who can't afford these fines. And in 2022, CW Mars, our consortium, voted to also no longer charge fines. And because we were already members of CW Mars, we're grandfathered in as being allowed to continue charging fines. Now, at the moment, out of 158 libraries in the consortium, a very small amount still are charges fines, and we're one of those libraries. All of the surrounding libraries, Sheffield, Monterey, New Marlborough, Pittsfield, Springfield, all are fine free. In the 7 years I've been working at the library, I've seen firsthand what these fines can do to families. They come in embarrassed. It's such a stigma attached to having library fines, whether it's from childhood. We try to comfort these people, but they still can't take anything out if it's over $10. It might not seem like a lot, but to some people, it's a financial burden. And I've seen the heartbreak when we have to turn people away, saying, I'm sorry, you can't take anything. This does not absolve people. If their item does not return after 28 days, they will be charged for it. Their account will be blocked. All it does is remove fines. So it's a small price to pay for such a huge thank you to the community for being part of the library. Thank you.
And what you're looking for tonight is a vote by us to make Great Barrington Library fine free, correct?
Yes, indeed. Our, in FY 22, just so you know that the fine and replacement revenue from the GB libraries was $3,555. We are not able to delineate between fines and replacement fees, but we believe it to be about a 50-50 split. In which case, the fine revenue is about $1,800. We recommend that you vote in favor of the Great Barrington Libraries becoming fine free. The Great Barrington Library Board of Trustees recommends this as well. What we would do was we would come up with a different, we would eliminate all fines and we would mark hotspots and museum passes lost after 24 hours after their due date, and then expunge those fines associated with that when the item is returned. We would also do an amnesty mode for a period. It wouldn't be a retroactive fine, it would be going forward, but we would have an amnesty period, probably of about a month, where patrons could come in and bring in their overdue items and have those fines expunged for that period. In many communities that have done this across America, may have been larger ones, but they see a lot of patrons coming back who they haven't seen in a long time. And so we hope that will happen at the Great Barrington Libraries too. We would also, if you vote in favor of this, it wouldn't go into effect immediately. We would first have to update our borrowing policy, which we do in concert with the trustees, and we would also update our information with our libraries sharing consortium, because we're all in this together with the consortium and it affects them as well. And then we would come up with a communication plan for the public so that they know.
You have a motion.
I make a motion in favor of Great Barrington Libraries.
Any discussion from the board?
How long until you think you would be implementing this?
Just giving the schedule of trustee meetings and whatnot, and those being monthly, I would say May 1st.
Ideal.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you.
The select board to reconsider price drop for wine and malt package for a license request.
You don't have to read it, but so I'll get right at that.
Okay, go ahead. Just say.
I haven't have to recuse this.
So one member is refusing himself. Just while we're promoting a few people, there are 170 attendees online. And we have, for those who are online, we have a full house in the selectmen's meeting room.
All right, well, thank you very much. For the select board, my name is Nick Arienti, and tonight I am here on behalf of Price Chopper Market 32. With me here this evening are a number of people attending both virtually and in person. On behalf of Price Chopper Market 32, virtually I have Blaine Bringhurst, who's president of the corporation. Also have Tom Fitzgerald on Zoom, who's a executive for the corporation, Carrie Terra Firma General Counsel. Tom Hayden is right here for Price Chopper. Tom Lee, who is in charge of engineering and design on behalf of Price Chopper as well. Also have on behalf, we have James Carlson, who's here as the zone manager and representing Great Barrington's Price Chopper tonight. David Wright is here. He's president of Paragon Realty. Paragon is the owner of the Great Barrington Plaza and representing the landlord's interest here this evening relative to the importance of why we're here. Following my introductory comments, Blaine Bringhurst, president, is going to make some comments and articulate for you all why we requested the opportunity to speak with the board again, and with the hope and intent that there is an opportunity to reconsider our application at this time.
Just one second. We're really crowded in this room, so if you feel the urge to speak, could you just go outside and down the stairs, because it's really hard to concentrate otherwise. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Status of the application, as you know, is currently pending appeal of the ABCC based on a denial from last year. So Price Chopper Market 32 felt that it was of critical importance to communicate with the board about why their application for a beer and wine license is so important. Not only to Price Chopper Great Barrington, but to the community at large in the town. And no less for the plaza and its long-term viability. I'm not going to take any more time on introductory comments. I'm going to introduce Blaine Bringhurst, who is president of Price Chopper, to speak on behalf of the applicant at this time.
Thank you very much. And can everyone hear me okay?
We can.
Excellent. So thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak in front of the select board and to present our thoughts on this topic. And I want to start with, the town of Great Barrington has been very good to Price Chopper. We've had a long-standing relationship. We've been in operation in our current store for 26, 27 years. We found the community to be delightful, and our teammates, most of whom come from the town of Great Barrington, have been very, very loyal, hardworking, and just great individuals. And we're very thankful for the opportunity we've had to serve the community over the years. What we would like to do is take our current existing store and expand it and rebrand it into a Market 32. The expansion would not be a big expansion, but it would add about 8,000 square feet to the left of our building in some empty space right now. What that would enable us to do is, again, as I said, expand and rebrand our store. It would provide us the opportunity to improve our variety in fresh foods, significantly in produce, in seafood, in the meat department. It will help us enhance the customer experience. It'll help us modernize the store both inside and out. So a new storefront that is much more modern in its look and appeal. And, we think it's our brand, so we're proud of it, but we think it looks very good, and it has great curb appeal and will certainly help the look and feel of Great Barrington in the neck of the woods that we operate. So that's the opportunity we are looking for in order to make our performance work, because when we invest sizable amounts of capital, in this case, around $4 million of our capital would be invested in this store and in this community. We have to make sure that the performer works. And the way to make this work is to do all the things I talked about, plus the addition of having a wine and malt license. Because that is a draw. It draws consumers into our stores. And today we are at a disadvantage to the rest of our competitors in the town of Great Barrington who have the license, and we do not. Wine and malt is a draw year round, but most significantly at holidays and for special events. And without the ability to sell that, we lose some trips. We lose customer count, and therefore we don't grow our sales. So it really is important for us in the long-term viability of the store that we are able to obtain this license and be able to satisfy those customers' needs in our store, along with the the bevy of other offerings that we have inside of our store. Today's store, unfortunately, it's 27 years old, and it just is not competitive with the rest of the market, largely because of the fact that we don't have the full offering, namely wine and malt, but also because it needs to be updated. And that's why we would like to invest that capital to give the consumer a better shopping experience. Our fear is that without this opportunity, that, you know, our sales could continue to dwindle. And, you know, when in our business, when we lose sales, we have to cut back on hours in the store, and we don't want to affect our teammates' livelihoods by cutting back hours. And once you get into that cycle, unfortunately, things are rarely in a situation that they get better. They oftentimes get worse. So we want to remain economically viable in this store, and we want to invest a lot of capital. And we feel very strongly that if we do that, if we're allowed that opportunity, not only will we be able to preserve existing jobs, but we'll be able to expand and add jobs and add hours to the teammates that we already have in place. We obviously would plan to operate within the guidelines that were set forth by this council, as well as any state and local laws. You know, we have been doing this for a very long time in other municipalities and in other states, and we take adherence to all local laws very, very seriously. We have great controls in place to make certain that, you know, we're only shelving the products where they are allowed. We are making certain that they are only purchased by individuals that are of age to purchase, and we have tremendous controls and respect for state and local laws to make certain that we are obeying and following those, and have diligent processes in place to ensure that that happens. So, you know, our ask is that you revisit this topic and consider granting us the opportunity to receive a wine and malt license, so that we can remain economically viable, so that we can invest in the community and in this store, and so that we can invest in our consumers and the teammates that we currently have in our store.
Thank you.
David Wright, can I invite you up here to make a few comments on behalf of Paragon?
Thank you. My name is David Wright. I'm the president of Paragon Realty Group, and we are the owners of Barrington Plaza. Excuse me. We wanted to add our voice to Price Choppers to reinforce how important it is to us and to them that they receive this license to expand their business. Our discussions with them have been pretty clear that if that does not happen, then renewal of their lease is very much in question. And it's up in a few years. And I can't stress enough how important Price Chopper is to the long-term viability of Barrington Plaza. I mean, our tenants are our lifeblood of our shopping center. And the grocery anchor is the lifeblood of the other tenants. The reason almost all the small tenants are there is because they want to be by a dominant grocer. They want to be where there are people coming in a vibrant shopping center with a lot of activity, etc. And we don't relish the thought of the possibility of having a shopping center with a 50,000 square foot hole in it that's at the very front door, right at the driving center, and would be tremendously difficult to backfill, especially in a market like Great Barrington. It's not that deep. It's not like super centers everywhere. Targets and Kohl's are not going to be options, and you're not going to backfill a grocery store if they ever left with another grocery store that if the one before it couldn't make it. I don't really have much more to say. It's a really important thing to us so that we can continue our investment in the center. We worked really hard to get Tractor Supply in there and did that. We fixed up that end of the dead Kmart, which used to be an eyesore. Now that's, you know, a draw with a lot of traffic, and we want to continue that and assist Price Chopper in doing so. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you, David. Yeah, we know there are other matters on tonight, so we don't want to take up too much of your time speaking affirmatively, but we did want to take this opportunity not only to have, you know, our applicant, our tenant, our corporate residents here let you all know why this issue is important, but to further state how important they know this issue is to you. Based on some of the comments I think that were expressed in the prior process, there is an intent to make every effort possible in order to be responsible if they are fortunate to be the recipient of a license. Okay, I know that we're not at an official hearing, at a formal hearing, but they will go on the record at this point. I will go on for them to state that they are agreeable 100% to making affirmative conditions to the grant of any license, if you're willing to consider that. Okay, there are a number of conditions they're willing to affirmatively agree to at this time. If you're willing to consider a reapplication, one would be that simply the area depicted on the plans of the dedicated wine and beer aisle, which there is a single aisle, will not be expanded in any way, shape, or form. No aisle creep, okay, whatsoever, outside of that approved by a modification of the liquor license, if one is granted. 2, there won't be any advertising or merchandising of beer and wine outside of the dedicated beer and wine aisle. 3 is there will not be any advertising or end of aisle merchandising of beer and wine at the 4 ends of the aisle, okay, that face out into the greater or the more broad aisle. There's no merchandising, no advertising or marketing. And finally, there will be lockable security gates installed at both ends of the dedicated beer wine aisle to prevent customers or anyone else from reaching those products within the dedicated aisle during times when sales are not permitted. So they are prospectively agreeing to those conditions, assuming we get to a point where we can make a formal reapplication or affirm our prior application with these conditions. Again, it's contingent on the board here agreeing to reconsider that and hopefully allowing that opportunity. So that's why we're here tonight in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can that you might have. The reason that we have a number of folks who are from Price Chopper is to do the same. And David from Paragon to show you why this is an important issue and make clear that it's critical, again, not only for Price Chopper as a long-term entity here at the plaza, but the impacts it potentially have for the plaza long-term. So, is there any further?
So the process tonight is just to have the board agree whether we should schedule a public hearing. Tonight's not a night for a discussion, nor is it a night for a vote. We have to have another public hearing. And that's up to this board whether they want to. Last time, just for those who don't know, failed by a 2-2 vote. So it's up to this board. You know, I'd like to schedule one if no one objects. And start the discussion.
I think we made a mistake with Price Chopper, with Big Y, by getting the license. So I was against this. On the other hand, I'm also practical, and it's a very important thing to have in town. So I wouldn't object. I wouldn't object to reschedule.
Okay, so we will reschedule. We'll work with Mark and Chris to reschedule the public hearing as soon as we can get it on the agenda. And we'll look forward to seeing you all again.
Great. Well, thank you very much for getting to that opportunity over with Mark and David, presumably to make sure that we got all our i's and crossed all our t's.
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Mr. Brenner.
Thank you very much for hearing us and for the opportunity to present one more time. Have a good night.
Thank you. Yeah, I have just a few things to say before we open the public hearing. And before I do that, you're gonna hear me say that we allow each person to speak 3 minutes. We have, I'm gonna say 250 people between remotely and here. And if everyone speaks for 3 minutes, we'll all be old before we get to voting on this. So I think I just ask people to be reasonable about speaking. So the next item on the agenda is a public hearing on the special permit application of Berkshire Aviation Enterprises regarding the airport at 70 Egremont Plain Road. I'm aware that the board received many advanced comments on this application, and that there will likely be a number of persons who want to speak on the application as part of the hearing process. As is listed in the agenda for tonight's meeting, there will be opportunity for public comment, either in favor or in opposition to the application. Under the select board policies for the citizen speak portion of our meetings, the time period for a speaker is 3 minutes unless the chair grants a longer period of time. I will use that time as a guide in conducting the public hearing. I will also ask that speakers try to avoid repeating the same comments that others have made. If you'd like to speak and someone else has made the points that you would like to offer, you can refer to the previous speaker's comments. That will allow for participation of the public and I hope a manageable period of time for the hearing. When we get to the point of a concluding statement, which I hope we get to tonight, but that may be at another meeting, in support of the application and any concluding statement or rebuttal in opposition, I will keep in mind the 5-minute limit for those statements that is stated in the board's policies and procedures in chapter 189 of the town code. As we go through the hearing, if there are questions regarding more or less time for speakers, the chair will decide those, keeping in mind my earlier comments. I now ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
I make a motion to open public hearing for the special permit application from Berkshire Aviation Enterprises, Inc.
And this is a roll call vote. Eric,
Aye.
Garfield,
Aye.
Ed, Lee.
Aye.
And I, we have 2 statements from board members.
Yeah, you want
Yes, I filed an appearance of conflict of interest form today. The reason being is that my daughter has recently been admitted into the Air Force Academy Preparatory School and has expressed interest in possibly taking flight lessons or visiting the Great Barrington Airport. So I just wanted to put that on the record, has nothing to do with me, but because of the timing, I felt it was important just to file that, so that's been filed today.
I filed the same form. I'm a close friend, really like family with a few pilots in town. And I also serve on a nonprofit board with somebody who is vocally opposing. Opposing this permit, but I have no financial interests or family interests with either.
Okay, so we will start with an explanation.
Excuse me, is that a quorum? Need to interrupt.
They're not recusing themselves.
Oh, we're not refusing.
Thank you for your time this evening, Mr. Chair, the board. Attorney Egan, on behalf of Berkshire Aviation Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Great Barrington Airport and Walter J. Kalasha Airport. With me this evening are Rick Solon, one of the owners, majority owner of the airport, his son Joe Solon, who is the manager of the airport, and Harry Anderson, who is the business manager of the airport. They're all available this evening to answer any questions. You may see me refer to them if I don't know the answer to a question. But hopefully among the group, we will all be able to answer any questions the board has. The application here before you is pursuant to section 3.1.4.e, section 7.2, and section 10.4 of the Town of Great Barrington zoning bylaw. With respect to the property located at 70 Egremont Plain Road, again, Great Barrington Airport. The reason we're here this evening is because of a small group of opponents of the airport that filed a lawsuit in the Massachusetts Land Court. And the goal of that lawsuit is to turn the clock back to 1932 on the airport. The allegations in the lawsuit are that any improvements that were made post the zoning March 31st, 1932 are a violation of law. The airport's position in that lawsuit is that we're preempted by federal and state law from those regulations. That said, we are voluntarily submitting ourselves to zoning this evening. By definition, by filing this application, we are submitting ourselves to the zoning bylaws of the town of Great Barrington. In order to preserve its rights to defend itself in that land court case, the airport asked the land court to be allowed in to defend itself as a party defendant in that lawsuit. The land court said, yes, you can come in. I think it's clear to state that the airport has not sued the town of Great Barrington and is not asked for any of its fees and costs to be paid by the town of Great Barrington. So the plaintiffs in that case have submitted to the land court that if they were successful in that lawsuit, the remedy for the alleged deficiencies would be a special permit granted by you, by this board. So here we are. Why are we here? We're not here because we have to be. We're here because we feel that it is a reasonable resolution to this issue. Will save the taxpayers of the town of Great Barrington and the owners of the airport a tremendous amount of time and a great deal of money. Significant funds saved for both parties. It's important to note at the outset that this permit application is not about expansion. It is about existence. It is about what you see at the airport is what you get and what we are asking you to codify as a legal use. Let me tell you what those three activities are: flight operations, aircraft maintenance, and a flight school. That's what existed at the airport's founding in 1931. And that's what exists now. And we are asking this board to make a determination that those activities be allowed to continue. This is not about a restaurant. It is not about an industrial park. It is about those three things that I just listed and nothing more. Further, as part of its application, the airport has voluntarily put forth conditions that is asked this board to put on that permit. In the past, there have been concerns that by granting a special permit, this board will essentially open a Pandora's box, if you will, that there will be uncontrolled expansion. That's antithetical to Massachusetts law. As this board knows, Massachusetts law says that the permit granting authority, in this case, this board has the right to grant a permit with reasonable conditions. Those reasonable conditions are the law of the land as it relates to the parcel to which that permit relates. I just want to clarify that. If this board grants an application with reasonable conditions, that is not up for any owner of that property to decide that it wants to or does not want to abide by those conditions. This board has the right, if it feels that those conditions are being violated, as you know, to call the permit holder back before you and inquire as to whether or not those conditions are being complied with. Let me talk about those conditions. Would add that under normal circumstances, conditions such as hours of operation and flight operations are not the jurisdiction of this board. It's preempted by state and federal law. I see that town council is on. Obviously, if you have questions with respect to that, obviously feel free to ask. But we are voluntarily submitting to these conditions. Hours of operation. During fall, winter, and spring, there shall be no continuous takeoffs and landings after 8 p.m. During summer, there shall be no continuous takeoff and landing after 7 p.m. unless unusual conditions, such as a new student solo flight, are present. There shall be no unnecessary aircraft run-ups before 8 a.m. On Sunday, there shall be no continuous student takeoffs and landing before 9 a.m. Right, shall be no helicopter flight school. With respect to Black Hawk helicopters, those are military helicopters, as you may know. The airport shall use its best efforts to work with the United States Army to limit training activity at the airport. Should be noted that the airport has no control over the current training activity. All we can do is seek the assistance of the Army. There shall be no glider aircraft activity except in extraordinary circumstances. There shall be no jet aircraft. Parking shall only be allowed in airport parking lots. If you allow me to go over 3 minutes, Mr. Chair, I'll just.
The applicant has more time than that.
Thank you. Just want to run through It should be noted that the property is located in R4 residential district within the water quality protection overlay district and the floodplain district. So I just want to walk through some of those things with the board. The airport is exempt from the water quality protection overlay district in as much as it does not propose any expansion of the current use. And is a very small quantity generator as it relates to hazardous materials, and therefore is exempt from the requirements of water quality protection overlay district. With respect to the floodplain district, none of the activities are proposed in the floodplain, therefore that does not apply. As to section 7.2 of the Town of Great Barrington zoning bylaws, which relates to aviation fields, it is the airport's position that it is exempt from that zoning bylaw because of the fact that that zoning bylaw affects aircraft operations. And aircraft operations are preempted by section 90. Chapter 90, section 39B, paragraph 5 of the Massachusetts general laws, which essentially says that no municipality may make a zoning bylaw affecting aircraft operations without first having that proposed bylaw approved by the Aeronautics Division of the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. That said, this issue has been discussed with the land court. That said, that ultimate decision lies with this board. Again, town council's on, you don't have to take my word for this, but this board is essentially presented with three options as it relates to 7.2. One is to say it is not preempted and the applicant meets the standards of 7.2. Another is to say that 7.2 applies only to the original siting of airfields. In this case, the airfield was legally existing as of 1931, and therefore 7.2 is not applicable. Or the third is to follow the lead of town council in 2020, when town council looked at a previous advisory from the Aeronautics Division, which said that the way to cure what the Aeronautics Division saw as a de facto prohibition on aviation relative to 7.2 is to add language that essentially says that the activity will be no more objectionable than usual airport or aviation field activities. The applicants submit to you that no event are the current activities any more objectionable than usual airport activities. Any questions before I go into the 6 factors of the special permit that are required?
Yeah, just keep going, that's fine.
Thank you. The 6 factors that are required, as this board knows, in order for this board to grant the special permit are social, economic, or community needs which are served by the proposal. The airport has been in operation as an aviation field since 1930. The airport currently serves Great Barrington and surrounding communities by providing a community general aviation airport in furtherance of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts goal of advancement of aeronautics in the Commonwealth. The airport provides a landing area for emergency medical transportation aircraft. The airport operates a flight school, which provides educational opportunities and career advancements to the citizens of Great Barrington and beyond, Berkshire County and beyond. The airport regularly attracts visitors to Great Barrington, which in turn has a positive economic impact on the town of Great Barrington. In addition, the airport provides employment to the citizens of Great Barrington and surrounding communities. We refer to a 2019 Massachusetts Department of Transportation Aeronautics Division statewide airport economic impact report, which attributed $5.2 million in economic impact and 56 jobs to Great Barrington Airport. The second criteria is with respect to traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading. The airport's a very low traffic generator. Again, we're not looking to add any activities other than what are currently existing. Airport provides adequate off-street parking, and there will be no change to traffic and safety or parking and loading. We said in our conditions, all parking will be off-street. Third criterion is adequacy of utilities and other public services. In this case, the airport does not use public water or sewer. The property is serviced by a private drinking water well and a septic system, both of which are sufficient for the airport's current needs. The fourth is neighborhood characteristic and social structure. As previously stated, the airport has been operating as an aviation field since at least September 1931. Therefore, much of the neighborhood is essentially grown up around the airport. Surrounding uses include residential and agricultural. In addition, the conditions imposed, I think this is important to emphasize. The conditions proposed by the applicant, the application will actually improve the neighborhood character and social structure by setting standards with respect to hours of operations and other aircraft operations. It's actually an improvement over what's happening there because of the hours of operations conditions. Impacts on the natural environment. Granted, the special permit will have no additional impacts on the natural environment. And potential fiscal impact, including impact on town services, tax base, and employment. There will be no adverse fiscal impact or other impact on town services. The special permit is granted, and to the contrary, granting of the special permit will ensure that current employees of the airport remain employed. And the fiscal benefits currently enjoyed by the town of Great Barrington, including without limitation, real estate taxes, receipts, tourist dollars, and as a result of the airport's operations continuing.
May I ask a question? Because I think I missed. In number one, did you give us some numbers on employment that weren't in the application?
Yes,
Can you repeat them?
yes, absolutely. That's very much. The 2019 Massachusetts Department of Transportation Division of Aeronautics statewide airport economic impact report attributes $5.2 million in economic impact and 56 jobs. Attributes that to Great Barrington Airport.
Could we get a copy of that?
Sure, I'm happy with me here this evening. I'm happy to give you one. With the chair's permission, I just wanted to say a few things about environmental issues that came up before the Board of Health. Yes, I'll just step back for a moment. And as you know, we went before the Board of Health and the Planning Board, planning for a favorable recommendation. And the Board of Health gave a neutral recommendation with some recommendations or questions. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the environmental issues that came up before the Board of Health and have historically been presented. With respect to potential lead in the soil, naturally occurring background lead is 15 to 40 parts per million. 15 to 40 parts per million naturally occurring. In 2017, a soil analysis was done in 6 different locations at the airport, 2 of which were located in what are known as run-up areas. It's important to note because those run-up areas are areas where the aircraft engine is put through its paces, if you will, in 2,000 RPM. Conceivably, it's where the tailpipes are, the exhaust is, and the aircraft is operating. The engine is operating at 2,000 RPMs. Of those 6 samples taken, the highest came back with a level of 21.7 parts per million. So I don't think this can be understated. I just want to say this one more time. Naturally occurring lead in the soil is 15 to 40 parts per million. 6 samples taken in 2017, and of those 6, the highest level reported was 21.7. So not only is there no evidence of lead contamination in the soil, but those 2017 samples after 86 years of operation show levels on the low end of the naturally occurring lead. In addition, water analysis was done in 2017, came back with no actionable Findings and the Great Barrington Water District, I would add, regularly tests the water and has not found any actionable findings. With respect to concerns raised with the Board of Health and historically regarding aviation fuel, known as avgas stored at the property, there is a 20,000 gallon double walled fiberglass tank, the gold standard, same type of tank you see at a gas station. And that tank is comprised of 12,000 gallons of low lead, 94 low lead avgas, and 8,000 gallons of no lead. I've noted before this board and others in the past, and I think it bears repeating, that Great Barrington Airport was one of the first adapters of no lead avgas in the country. And the FAA has a goal that by 2030 that all piston-driven aircraft will run on no lead. I would also mention that with respect to that fiberglass double-walled underground storage tank, it also has a leak detection system that would alert the aircraft operators if there were a leak. I think it's important to note that there's never been a leak reported at Great Barrington Airport. On these issues of environmental concerns, I think it's vitally important for all of us to stick to the science. And the science suggests that not only is there no lead contamination in the soil at the airport, but the airport has done everything it can to ensure the safe storage of fuel. Would also say that as an attachment to the application materials, there was a Department of Environmental SWOT report, it's called. That SWOT report was dated 2003. Naturally, it identified the airport and another fuel oil distributors as areas of high concern. I think it's important to note, if you look at that SWOT report, that the SWOT report identifies the underground storage tanks as single walled. I have a copy of that report too, as well, if anyone needs a copy. So in 2017, the fuel storage tank that was referred to in that SWOT report was upgraded, replaced with the aforementioned double wall fiberglass tank. And then finally, with respect to environmental and fuel storage, hazardous materials, storage and handling, State of Massachusetts has rigorous training and requirements that the airport complies with. The airport manager, again, Jim Soland, is trained, stays on top of that. There's spill prevention kits located immediately adjacent to the fuel tank, the fuel pumps at the airport. With that, is there any questions from the board? We're happy to answer them.
So go
I
ahead.
just have one, when was that, when did they go from the single wall to a double wall? What year?
2017.
So what we typically do now is allow public comment. I suspect that will be the end of tonight. That will take as long as I have patience for. And then the select board will start to ask questions, discuss with the applicant, then we'll close the public hearing. So this will be the one chance for the public to speak, so I want them to take advantage of that. So, as I said in my opening remarks, we'll take turns between those in person and those who are remotely participating tonight. Remembering that our rules of primary resident of Great Barrington or Housatonic, homeowner or renter, property owner in Great Barrington, Housatonic, or business owner and operator with a base of operations in Great Barrington, Housatonic. So I will start online with Glenn. You all have 3 minutes. You need to, for the Glenn's disappeared. He had his hand up the whole time. You need to state your name and address for the records. And I'll give you approximately 3 minutes. I won't put you off exactly at 3, but I'll ask you to stop as you get close to it. So, Jan Wojcik. Go ahead.
My name is.
We're gonna go here and then I'll go to you next.
Okay.
No problem, stay right there.
Can you hear me?
Go right ahead. Yes, we can.
Okay.
Dr.
This
Chang?
is Ruby Chang, 253 Long Pond Road. I'm also on the Board of Health. As you all know, that this application has gone through the Board of Health. And I just wanted to say that I would like to see an independent environmental assessment paid for by the airport, indicating that there is no danger to the aquifer, which is right by it. And this aquifer supplies all of the drinking water of Great Barrington aside from Housatonic.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, name and address, go right ahead.
My name is Eunice Agar. I live at 20 Egremont Plain Road. And except for a hiatus of 10 years, I've lived my entire life since 1937 at the intersection of 71 and Herbert Road. My studio is around the corner on Herbert Road. And during that entire time, when I'm in my studio or in my house, I never hear the planes. The only time I hear them is if I'm sitting on my back porch in warm weather, and not always. The little planes don't make any more noise than a truck going by. And to be strictly honest, I must say my ears don't work very well anymore, but that's a recent phenomenon. So I must urge you to consider how important the airport is for the town of Great Barrington, for all the reasons you will hear many times, and to allow them to continue operating according to the same parameters that they've been doing all along. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
While we have you, Eunice? While we have you,
You were gonna say the same thing I was gonna go.
yeah, thank you. We get to look at your paintings every meeting, so thank you.
That's a bright spot of our meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Christopher Weaver.
Thank you. I'd like to give you a
We need
moment.
your address.
Oh, 95 West Avenue.
Go ahead.
I'd like to just take a few minutes to tell you about my personal experience with the airport. I first met Walt Colazza and Rocky Trafficante in the mid-1970s when I first started flying. And the FBO office was a great place for a young pilot to hang out, listen to airport traffic on the radio, learn tips about aviation from Walt. He had an amazing depth of knowledge and experience born from his days as a test pilot. This was old-time hangar flying where you went to the airport for the experience as much as the convenience. And Walt set the stage for everyone else who followed. A local hometown airport that welcomes everyone with similar interest, always a nice word, always a good experience to listen and learn from pilots more knowledgeable than you. There was an honor system about things like the crew car. As long as Walt knew you, he'd just give you the keys and say something like, "Don't stay out too long, kid." It was never required, but if you used the car, he put some gas in it as a courtesy to other drivers, and that honor system always worked. Can't remember a time that the gas tank was less than half full. I think there's been a lot of fear mongering making the rounds online with regards to claims of imminent jet traffic at GBR and the noise that goes with large airports. Those claims are absolute nonsense because no fan jet can land and take off at GBR's short runway, and the airport doesn't even carry jet fuel. GBR is a small town local airport that caters primarily to single engine airplanes with an occasional twin, and the majority of those people are local. I want to just tell you a short story. I have a very special affection for Great Barrington. In 1988, my father was suffering from congestive heart failure, and despite taking Lasix to control the swelling of his extremities, he wasn't doing well. I was living in Maryland at the time, and I arranged for my father to be admitted to Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. But the reality was that he would likely not be able to ride upright in a car for over 6 hours. I called the airport and I arranged for a charter flight to Baltimore. 50 minutes after takeoff, we touched down in Baltimore and were met by a waiting ambulance that immediately transported my father to Hopkins, and I credit them with saving my father's life. If not for that Great Barrington flight, my father would likely not have made it to Hopkins at all. I credit that charter with giving me and my father an additional 9 years. I'll be forever in their debt for that kindness and preventing an impending emergency. Some local airports play an important part in the fabric of towns like Great Barrington. They provide a focal point for common interest and a place of camaraderie. Everyone is connected by their love of flying and all are accepted. I credit much of my 50-year history of flying to those early days of listening to the elders who would share their knowledge with all the regulars who frequented the airport. You'd have to drive almost an hour north to Pittsfield to the nearest small airport, and Albany and Hartford are even farther away. Great Barrington provides an important source of transportation and invites the business that comes with immediate access to the local area. It seems unthinkable that a group of, self-dealing people who move into the area from a different part of the state would be allowed to use their interpretation or manipulation of the law and wealth as a truncheon to dictate a self-serving agenda.
Your time's almost up. Could you just run
Okay.
there, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
The town should correct its oversight and officially recognize the airport. To do anything less would send the message that money trumps principle, and the simple fact is that it does not. Thank you.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Liz Schaefer. I live at 86 Castle Street in town. I've been here since 1991 and I grew up in the area. And I'm also part of a local citizens group to save the Great Barrington Airport. And I'm here tonight in support of the Great Barrington Airport special permit. This is the airport's, I call this the airport centennial year. Everybody's referring to 1932. But we should be celebrating this airport instead of wasting time, money, and precious life energy in such a contentious project. There's been much fear mongering and distortion of the facts and evidence that has been so divisive. I hope you'll see tonight by the number of speakers whose stories support this airport. Kids, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. This is part of a community and it's an important community for the entire surrounding area. The opponents want you to believe differently. They say the special permit will allow the airport to expand. But you all know that's something that can't be done unless you go through the proper channels. And that's not what we're here for tonight. Why are we here? Because the zoning board of appeals is being sued. And the judge, the Honorable Judge Piper, which is kind of amusing. He posed question if the airport had a special permit, and he says, I quote, there would be no cause for action. The opponents say they don't want to close the airport. Then why did they just 2 weeks ago file an injunction to stop these proceedings? The opponents say there's contamination of the aquifer, lead, poisoning of the airport. They have no evidence to prove their point. In a letter written to you all, dated October 20th, 2022, they state, and I quote, we believe we are acting in the best interest of the Great Barrington community as a whole. There is no benefit to the town or residents of Great Barrington from the airport. It is a hobby airport inherited by individuals who are not Great Barrington residents who are seeking to expand the airport at the expense of neighbors and mass taxpayers. We hope to show you with numerous speakers, with almost 10,000 petitions that you see there. I know you received the PDFs, but that's the hard copy. With over 100 testimonials written by people who tell their stories why this airport is so important to them. And that the opponents, and we hope to show you that the opponents are wrong in their assertions. Let's keep this airport going. It's an important community asset. It's demonstrated itself throughout its history that it's valuable to this area. And this application to the special permit has been made in complete good faith. I just want to leave you with the final cautionary words of the remarkable Joni Mitchell. You don't know what you've got till it's gone. So I appreciate your attention and I thank you for your time.
Next will be Tad Hewer, who's an attorney, and I've given him permission to talk representing some clients. You did. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tad Hewer, I represent Holly Hamer of 99 Seacon Cross and Mark Festo and Ann Fredericks of 77 Seacon Cross. They opposed the grant of the special permit for the reasons that are detailed in the legal memo that we submitted to the board last week. It's important to be clear on two things. First, denying a special permit will not close the airport. If special permit's denied, the airport remains a pre-existing non-conforming use subject to well-established state Supreme Judicial Court precedent on expansion or intensification. I will note, you just heard the airport say something astonishing, that it doesn't think it's subject to zoning at all. Second, this hearing is not a popularity contest. It's about whether BAE has met the legal requirements under the bylaw that applies to every property owner in town to obtain a special permit. And the law is also clear that it's BAE that bears the burden of proof to provide the evidence that it's entitled to the special permit, not the other way around. So 4 brief points on the merits. First, it's objectively clear from BAE's application that they haven't submitted any new evidence to support the exact same request for a special permit that this board unanimously denied 2 years ago. And their contention that they meet the 6 special permit requirements is cursory. It's less than a page. There's no supporting documentation. But more importantly, on most of those 6 requirements, the select board already made written findings in 2020 that the airport didn't meet them. So since nothing has changed since, the select board has no legal basis on which to find the exact opposite now. Second, BAE now proposes conditions, but they're legally illusory. And why? Because Mass Aeronautics expressly told the town in a letter to Chris Rembold in 2020 that those conditions, hours in operation, limits on types of aircraft, were legally and BAE just admitted tonight they're preempted by federal law. But even if the current owners voluntarily comply, and as we know, they already have problems complying with their existing voluntarily noise protocols and flight paths, nothing prevents a subsequent owner from ignoring it. And that's the concern. That it's not just about granting the permit tonight to these applicants, but it's that it goes with the airport going forward for anyone else. Third, rather than explain how the airport will comply with section 7.2, that's the one that prohibits an airport in a location where it's likely to be objectionable to adjoining and nearby property because of noise, traffic, or other objectionable condition, BAE is literally demanding that the select board simply ignore it or rewrite it so it says something else. The important part for you to understand is that the town, the select board, the zoning board, is defending the validity of section 7.2 in land court right now. And it's after BAE sued the town last month. I unfortunately have to say that Mr. Egan's statement to the contrary is simply false. That's a very hard thing for an attorney to say about another. But in BAE's January 3rd complaint, paragraph 1 states that the plaintiff is BAE. Paragraph 2 states that the defendant is the zoning board. That is a lawsuit. There's also been no injunction filed. That's untrue. But regardless, even if the select board wanted to simply ignore a bylaw passed by town meeting, that's not allowed by law either. And finally, the airport's application is not limited. It asks for a special permit that would permanently allow an airport at 70 Egremont Plain, not just for the current owners, but for any subsequent owner. So that means BAE or successor could develop the entire 93 acres. That would double its footprint, again, in a rural residential neighborhood, while increasing noise and environmental impacts and dangerous conditions for drivers and residents. We've already seen 2 crashes in the last year. The airport's now seen a tripling of its student flights over the last 2 years, putting more beginner pilots in the cockpits of a fleet of really fast aging planes. And you saw attached to our memo a video showing a plane buzzing Seacon Crossroad about 6 feet above the ground while landing. Without needing any additional town approval, BAE or a successor owner could intensify the use of the airport without any restriction, whether by adding flights, increasing helicopters, creating a drone port, any other aviation use is what you'd be allowing with a special permit. So for all these detailed factual and legal reasons that are in our memo, we would urge the select board to deny the application. It simply doesn't meet the stringent legal standards that granted a special permit. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I would note that as I do represent the plaintiffs in the action in the land court, to the extent that there are confusions or questions about exactly what's happening there, for instance, what Judge Piper did or didn't say, and I can tell you conclusively, he did not say that you should go and grant a special permit and move this case. That would be a violation of the Code of Judicial Conduct. There seems to be a lot of misinformation, but to the extent that you'd like to hear from me or from Mr. Dineski, as to actually what has happened at the land court, we would be, of course, pleased to provide that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Claudia Shapiro, 78 on Plain Road for the last 51 years. I'm Berkshire Aviation Enterprise. Great Barrington does not have Great Barrington Airport. There's no such thing as a GBR, Great Barrington Regional yet. I wanted to make a couple comments on what Mr. Deegan said. There's no nighttime drills at the airport military, and there never has been, but that happens to be an FAA grant assurance. The tank replacement was a mandatory state mandated, just like your home would be, whatever was your home heating oil. So anyway, please incorporate into the record of proceedings as stated for the record, and also my February 13th statement. I want to point out that I'm not party of the land court action, all done behind my back. I've never complained about the airport. I've never complained about anyone in my name. I've never complained about anybody. I have been dealing with specifically Rick Solon since he inherited the airport in 2008 and his permit applications that he's been filing since 2013. So the agenda for this meeting, this hearing states the meeting is being closed tonight, followed by a motion and decision, clearly predetermined. The urgency due is to the May 1st, 2023 annual town meeting warrant deadline of tomorrow, February 22nd, to fulfill the land court prayer for relief requesting E. Hold that the powers applies and as a matter of law, the airport's expansion, extension, and enlargement requires further municipal approval pursuant to the powers test and is using in support the petition to save the Great Barrington Airport. D. Enjoin the airport from utilizing any post-1932 buildings for airport purposes without first obtaining approval from both the select board under section 3.1.4 and 7.2 of the bylaw, being accomplished tonight, and the zoning board under section 1.4 of the bylaw through the land court appeal, both exempting the airport from the zoning bylaw and the required filing under section 9.2, the Water Quality Protection Overlay District, giving the airport carte blanche and by right to do whatever they want. There is really no enforcement action, quote, against the airport. It's a play on word and it's a Trojan airport. All the parties involved are agreeing that currently there's a huge collective Great Barrington Regional General Aviation Community Business Airport located on the Egremont Plain Road in the corner of Seacon Crossroads since the 1920s, which actually includes 4 residents and homes. And the airport exempt from the zoning bylaw and from the required filing under section 9.2 of the Water Quality Protection Overlay District. As a board of selectmen, you cannot condition a special permit for Berkshire Aviation Enterprise. A non-conforming use loses its protected status by the granting of a special permit. A Great Barrington Regional Airport would have to comply with the FAA. On February 2nd and the 13th, I requested the legal opinion from town council. Mr. Hankin cautioned you, this board, to seek before moving forward in the granting of a special permit to Berkshire Aviation Enterprise due to vested rights and overlapping and likely conflict in jurisdiction and regulations between the town and the FAA. Never responded to, making you fully aware, coupled by the town-owned Seacon Crossroads abutting the runway. The selectmen's first public hearing held February 13th for this airport, and the final one being held tonight are for the plaintiff's land court case 22 miscellaneous 000244, 2 public clearings, 2 applications, and 2 businesses. Berkshire Aviation Enterprise Incorporated, riding the coattails of a colossal Great Barrington Regional General Aviation Community Business Airport. All I ever wanted, Rick, was for you to communicate with me and stay within the current confines of what you were inherited. And last and not least, the SWAT report is included inside this action. And if anyone took the time to read the SWAT report, they would see that the site-specific federal and state regulations apply to my property, not you, Mr. Solon. Thank you.
See who we have next. For those of you who are a little confused, we will not be closing the public hearing tonight. There's never been any intention of that. In order to allow someone to speak, I need their name, and I don't have a name on this one, so I'm gonna at least allow you to give your name and address, see if you're eligible. Go ahead.
One second.
Yeah, it starts with he, she, it.
Yes. That's next.
Okay, let's stop that one, go to Marcia. Marcia Stammel, you're.
Hi, I didn't expect to get called so early, but thank you. It's 624 South Egremont Road. Sorry, I can't be with you in person. It would be great. I started counting planes over my house the day that one small teaching plane flew over my head 3 times in 15 minutes. That particular plane was one of the 2 planes that crashed nearby last summer. So it was very scary. But there are plenty of other planes who are also flying over my house. And what's also scary is that they're flying low over Route 23, which is busy and accident prone. I often wonder what these guys are thinking. If they wanted to act in concert with and respect for our neighborhood, they wouldn't be doing that. I also ask myself that question every time I see a low flying plane over Seacon Cross. It's frequent. And I ask it every time a pilot at the end of the runway hangs out of his cockpit to make obscene gestures at me while I'm walking down the street. They should be checking their instruments for takeoff. When I saw a driver speeding down the runway, which is totally against the law, I got my answer. It's okay, he said, I'm a veteran. What BAE wants, and which its lawyer has told you, is to be exempt. They want to be exempt from safety concerns, from good manners, from the monetary risks of doing business, from zoning, and for the rules that govern all of us. And frankly, if they wanted to act in concert with our community, they'd be doing it now. But what they're asking they're asking exemption in this special permit, which will give them the right to develop however they want, including building the 6 industrial hangars that were part of their 2 previous applications. You know, I was doing some research and I found out from Investopedia that it costs an average of $200 an hour to fly one of these hobbyist planes. What really, really makes me mad is that these wealthy hobbyists also want people like me to pay for them. I live in a modest house that's also 200 years old. Yet my per acre property tax is 7 times that of BAE. Even though my buildings are smaller, they are fewer, and they are all legal. BAE is exempt from all sorts of sales taxes, yet these out-of-town businessmen have also gotten thousands upon thousands of dollars of state grants and will be qualified for more if you give them the special permit. Ordinary taxpayers. Yes, 2 paragraphs, 2 sentences. Ordinary taxpayers like myself are footing the bill, and we're being asked to put up with the noise and intrusion that the pilots think they also deserve by right. You did the right thing 4 years ago, a few years ago, when you voted not unanimously against the application, and I please do the right thing again this year. Thanks. Thanks. Sorry I went too long.
No, it's fine. David, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Dave Long, 304 North Plain Road. I'm here to support the special permit for confirm the continued existence of the Great Barrington Airport. I'm not a pilot. I've never flown in a plane out of that airport. But in the course of my life, I have lived near the airport. I've worked around the airport. And I've known many people that have really gotten tremendous benefit from being associated with that airport directly. There's no question that there are some downsides to having an airport in general, and if you live near it, it can be, I can understand, very miserable with the sound. But it's not like we all don't deal with it. And I live on North Plain Road. Now it's a major truck road. Every gravel pit that wants to service Great Barrington is driving the dump trucks. It's constant. And in fact, it goes all night. Whereas the planes at least quiet down. So I think if you look at it on the broad strokes, for generations, the Great Barrington Airport has basically been a gift to the town. And the greatest gift of all is the gift of life. And really, that's why I'm here. That there are two people that are very close to me who are really only here today because they were able to get a medevac and get the help they needed. The first is Nico Hardcastle, my partner, my former business partner's son, with 7 got in a terrible bike accident, had a severely lacerated liver, and just by the grace of God, he was able to get to Bay State and have emergency surgery, and now he's going to graduate from Berkshire School as an honor student, and we're all glad that that happened. The other one, even closer to me, is my own mother-in-law, Kay Poliak. I received a call that she pressed her medical alarm, and she was not responding. They were already sent an ambulance. I live up the road, and Pat, who lives with you, heard the call, and we arrived there. The ambulance was there almost immediately. She was unconscious, unresponsive, losing oxygen quickly. She actually went into cardiac arrest. And the call was made to send her off to Bay State. And I still, man, I'm tearing up thinking about it. But the entire staff, it wasn't just the medics that were on the ground, but they were reaching and talking to the hospitals. And next thing you know, Springfield is in the room, and the helicopter is on its way. And she got into this ambulance and arrived, and the helicopter was already there, and she made it by this much. Right? There was no time to spare. And if our emergency medical people and our hospital couldn't coordinate with the medevac services that are available in that airport, there are a lot of people who would be dead now. And I think there are literally hundreds of people there, 50 to 75 of these flights a year. So there has to be many people with stories like mine who live here every day.
So we'll wrap it up there.
So wrap it up. Thank you. The airport is a critical part of the fabric that we've built hard for a long time. Let's make sure we keep it. Thank you. Thank you.
Joanne Cooney. Just unmute yourself, Joanne.
Okay, I live at 148 Hurlburt Road, and I've lived here for 12 years. And during that time, from my experience, this airport went from a sleepy little, maybe, a few flights a day to a lot of activity. And Mrs. Agar is a neighbor of mine, and like her, when I'm in my house, I don't hear the planes. But especially during COVID, we had many activities outside, book club meetings and other meetings and family, and the plane traffic was horrendously disturbing to those outings. I wanted to agree with someone who said we are not you know, it's said that we are a bunch of wealthy people who are objecting to this. We're not wealthy. We are retired civil servants. Our neighbors are teachers, social workers. We loved having that little airport there, and I would love to see it stay there and stay the way it was 12 years ago when I moved here, but it is not the same airport, and it will only get worse if you grant this exemption. And since I've lived here, there have been 2 crashes in the cornfield behind my house, and the second one was about 50 feet from my neighbor's house. So, you know, I don't think the airport is as careful as it should be. And this is a residential area. The zoning is here. And I think I ask you to please deny their request. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right ahead.
Can you hear me? Jonathan Hankin, 43 West Plain Road. I've been in a butter of the airport for 20 years. Great Barrington would be nothing without our small businesses. The town has gone out of its way to support them. Berkshire Bus, closing Railroad Street, Holiday Stroll, Cultural District, Summerfest, etc. The airport is a locally owned small business. It is an amenity for the area, which also provides a site for medical evacuations, as well as ongoing support to the Rotary and other businesses in town. Opponents of this special permit, in their full-page paid ads, have labeled the airport owners and their many supporters as outsiders, because one of them lives in Canaan, where he grew up, and another has a home in Egerman. If being a Great Barrington resident were a requirement for support, then more than half of our downtown property owners, liquor stores, grocery stores, restaurants, and other businesses would not exist. Hopefully, you've all read Bill Shine's piece celebrating the history of the airport. It makes abundantly clear that this is and has been for close to 100 years a community resource for all of southern Berkshire County that has been inextricably linked to the power players in town, including many town officials. Through a succession of owners, there may have been some zoning infringements. None of that is attributable to the present owners, who, in seeking this permit, are trying the only way they can to make the airport compliant to our current zoning. Noise, lead pollution, and air traffic have been part of the operation of the airport for its entire existence. Planes do make noise when taking off, less so when landing. The noise is intermittent and of short duration, less than a minute typically, unlike lawnmowers, leaf blowers, delivery trucks, the train, and Harley Davidsons. More and more planes will be using non-leaded fuel in the not too distant future. Lead in the air is not a good thing, but no evidence has been presented or even exists that this has, as claimed, harmed our aquifer or poisoned any of our children, unlike hundreds of homes with lead paint in our community. Granting a special permit will not increase air traffic, but may, through conditions proposed by the applicant, reduce the hours of operation. Without a special permit, the airport will continue to exist, regulated only by state and federal agencies. The flight school has been a major asset. The community has become increasingly aware of the need for vocational training, its importance, and our school system's short supply. The airport is a valuable training resource for members of our community at no cost to the town or its residents. Granting a special permit will save the town significant legal fees to defend both the ZBA's and the building inspector's decisions in the land court, as well as future nuisance lawsuits. Town council has pointed out that the existing language in our zoning effectively and illegally bans any airport in town, including the existing one. Hopefully, the select board will take his advice to read the criterion to be not objectionable, but more objectionable, because it is already a legally existing use. Just wrap up, Jonathan.
Please grant this permit to support the small locally owned business and to protect this valued resource for the community of Great Barrington and our surrounding towns. Thank you.
T. Nunez, to state your full name and address, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Tristana Nunez. I live at 115 Herbert Road. I've lived here on and off since I was 8 years old. I grew up, I went to the Steiner School where my mother was a teacher, so I would pass the runway road every single day for all the primary school. And now my son goes to that school, so I'm very familiar with the airport. And either my husband or I pass the runway every single day when we pick up our kid. So I'm really fully in support of this airport. I think it should continue. And I'm also a teacher. And from my perspective, this airport is of incredible benefit. Obviously, there's a medical benefit, there's a community social benefit, there's an economic benefit. And I've known many people in the area. One of whom was my really close friend growing up. Her name was Krista Giddens. She grew up here. She had the Berkshires was pretty limited for her. And she became a pilot, then an EMT, then she joined the military and became a pilot in the military. And then that was her exit ticket out of Great Barrington. And it made like a really good life for her. And that's because of the airport. I had another friend who it was from another country. He moved to New York City, and he moved to the Berkshires, and he also got his pilot's license. And that was an incredible experience for him. And as a teacher, what I can say, and having grown up in this area, there is I think it's probably, I'm not so in touch with it, but there's a drug problem here for young people. And when I was a kid, I remember they took away the benches in town because they didn't want young people loitering. And that for me felt really hostile. And now as an adult thinking about this airport, I think it's extremely important for young people to have something to look forward to, because this economy is really rough here. I work in a school. And I also work in a restaurant to make ends meet. And, I'm an educated, fortunate person. I have skills. I count my blessings, right? And I'm not personally interested in flying, but I think it's an incredible resource. My kid is like obsessed with airplanes. It's been an amazing thing for him to watch as he's been growing up. And I live right down the road. I'm not as close as Eunice, but I'm right on the road, like right down the road from Eunice. But I have never been bothered by the noise. In fact, once in a while in the summer, we hear a plane up above, but in general, like it's never been an issue. In fact, it's like, I love having the airport there. You can drive down, you can watch airplanes, you can meet people. I think it's just an incredibly important community resource. And I really hope that the airport can continue. Okay, I think that's all I have to say. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Veronica.
Hi, my name is Ethan Kaufman. I live in 13 Stanley Drive. I just wanted to comment on the claim that it's a hobbyist airport. So I currently have my private license. I got it at the airport, and I did this math about 3 years ago. But the cost of getting all the way to my ATP, which is looking to fly in airlines, is about, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it costs about as much as getting a bachelor's degree at a state university to get paid as much as if you got a doctorate. And so someone who comes from a working class family, that's really valuable to me. I just want to say that.
Thank you. Michael Peretti?
Good evening, Steve. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Mike Peretti, 125 Seacon Crossroad. Just want to say, I've lived here for 60 years down the street from the airport. I'm pretty well known by the folks at the airport. This is never about closing the airport. It's about controlling its growth. And no one has really spoke about the excessive growth of the flight school. I've sent the select board lots of data and about how much it has grown, at least since 2020. And so I want to hear the airport discuss that. And, this is work in progress. We have to have a great compromise here. For me, living here 60 years, I've seen it all. And, this isn't Walter Claus's airport. It's a new airport. It's a different airport. And these guys need to make money, and I understand that. But the flight school is really the big elephant in the room here. I mean, it's incredible the amount of traffic that is generated by the flight school. And, one simple thing I would throw out there, let's not have flight school on Sunday. Simply put, it would be just a hobby airport, people flying their planes on Sundays, coming and going. Down at Lime Rock Racetrack in Connecticut, you can't race a car on Sunday. You can't hold an event. So, think about that simple compromise, no flight school on Sunday. We could actually sit on our backyards and enjoy some decent peace and quiet on a Sunday afternoon. So, it's really interesting to hear people say that, we're all about closing the airport. But, my great grandfather moved here in 1900. My grandfather used to go down to the airport and fill out paperwork during World War II to make sure that enemy aircraft, believe it or not, was not landing at the airport. So, we've been here a really long time. So no one wants to see the airport closed. This is all baloney. These people speaking about closing the airport. 10,000 people signed these petitions? I laughed. They're all over the community, outside of Great Barrington. These people don't even know what they were signing. So, with that said, my wife wants to play a little video of what we sometimes hear on a Sunday when the turboprop comes in and picks up clients in the air charter service. So anyway, that's about what I have to say. And this is what you got to listen to, folks. Good night.
Well, thank you. Gary, go ahead.
I am Gary Levier, a property owner, 35 Silver Street, and I serve as a commissioner with the Town Historical Commission. And I was asked by the commission to come here tonight to speak in favor of this special permit. Now, I'm not going to give you a history lecture. The big history book goes into that, and Bill Shine has been given a lot of local history. But I do want to mention 3 people that I consider almost historic figures having to do with the airport. And why they reflect to me the importance from an economic standpoint to our community. The first one is a fellow named Rocky Trafficante, who came to the United States as a young boy as a first-generation immigrant from Italy. And got a job at the airport, worked hard, became a mechanic on the airplanes, and eventually worked his way up and became a part owner of the airport. The second person I want to mention is Donald Moulthrop, who used to, as a kid, ride his bike all the way from Housatonic to the airport and dream of being a pilot. And when he got old enough, he started working there, learning how to fix planes, went off to the Army Air Corps at the end of World War II, came back, became a mechanic at the airport, and then he was very ambitious, became a captain with Delta Airlines. And the third person, and I think the most important maybe because February is Black History Month, was a fellow named Billy Palmer, who in the 1950s came to the airport as a young African-American and got a job. Walt hired him, worked hard, became sort of a jack of all trades, and learned a lot about aviation and running an airport, and went on to become a top administrator at Bradley International Airport in Hartford. So we have, and many, many other examples of people that have earned a good living at the airport. We have a historic economic tradition. This airport provides good training, good jobs, and it needs to be supported. Thank you.
Barbara Barak, go right ahead.
Yes, Barbara Barak, 6 Cornwall Drive. I have been increasingly upset by the number of large planes flying over my head all summer. They are twin engine, they're quite large. They have 4 windows on each side. To me, they look like little jets. They're very noisy and they stop all conversation. And there's one after another. And when I hear that Dennis Egan said, we just want to have small jets, I go, yuck. I mean, I can't even imagine anything bigger flying over my head. For a while, we've been on Cornwall Drive about 9 years. For a while, we had helicopters flying very low over our house. I think it was training for the Army. It was very hard to get the story out of the airport in past meetings. I was at both of them, or I watched both of them. They seem to be reluctant to talk about their number of flights that they have. They could have been measured. The flight school is a mystery in terms of the number. They have the equipment to measure the number of flights. They don't seem to want to use it. I think that that's a sore point because they don't really want to talk about the extreme number of it. So giving them an exemption really does open up the way for a lot of the things they asked for in the past, which they can do, which is like balloon events and family day with a lot of parking along Hurlburt Road and a lot of cars in our residential neighborhood. It doesn't not mean something that we pay good taxes in our residential area to enjoy ourselves. And in fact, the airport pays very little taxes from what I understand. And do we not have a right to be concerned about the expansion that will occur in the airport in many different ways? I mean, they've said that the bylaws don't apply to them. So they're going to be free, either they will or whoever they sell to do all sorts of things that scares me very much. I don't think they are team players with the residents, or they would have in the last few months, the last year, shown their consideration for residents, but they have not. They just seem to keep expanding, and the school, which is very good in principle, does a tremendous number of takeoffs and landings, which can be dangerous. And I'm all for the airport existing. I just can't see a carte blanche potential expansion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Daniel Miller, 40 Christian Hill Road here in Great Barrington. I really didn't come here tonight to speak. I'm more at comfort being a Facebook warrior than speaking out. But I've come to know that this airport is extremely important to this area. At the age of near 70, I'm 6 years shy of being a native to the area. I grew up in North Egremont.
We'll still
hold that against me.
There will still like you.
And but living in Great Barrington for the majority of my life. And it just astounds me that I see all this money spent on high-level lawyers from Boston trying to maybe not shut it down. I don't know. They say they're not trying to shut it down or cripple the airport is the way I see it. Awful lot of money. First, there were claims of lead in the water attributed to the airport. Okay, well, it's not up to the airport to prove their innocence. I thought in our country you were innocent until proven guilty. So where is the proof that they are guilty? There's supposed to be these multiple levels of lead in water by one of the plaintiffs who lives 3/4 of a mile from the airport. Okay, well, okay, where are the facts? How is that attributable to the airport? Maybe that exists somewhere. I haven't seen it. I don't know of anybody who knows where it is. Expansion. I don't know of any business that doesn't need to expand over its period of time. Price Chopper was here a little earlier. How long have they been at the plaza? A couple decades now. They want to expand. Oh, wow. The airport's been here for almost 100 years. They want to expand? No, we're not going to have 747s landing here. Not that I know of. No, I think so. Okay, so, I know people who live next to, next to the airport. Bullet and Lee Klein, who many of you knew, okay, live right next to the runway. Wasn't their house many times? Not once did I ever hear any of them complain about the airplanes in the runway. The house I lived in when I was young belonged to the Randy family. That family wound up owning a house at the end of the runway. Again, nobody complained. We would go there and the plane would fly over, whatever. I hear generalities, large number of planes flying low. How low? How many planes? It's all these generalities that really say nothing. But try to paint a dark image of the airport.
Let's wrap up then.
Okay, but anyhow, I would like to see the board rule in favor of the airport on whatever conditions are deemed necessary, and that it continue to thrive.
Senan Esco, if I pronounce that correctly.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Tannen Sumnik Esco, 410 North Plain Road in Housatonic. I moved to Great Barrington about 7 years ago. Most recently I live in Housatonic. In both places that I lived in the traffic, underneath the traffic pattern of the airport. And I could still hear planes. It never bothered me. When I'm out there on Sunday on my deck and I hear small planes, my neighbor's mower in the summer on Sunday afternoon annoys me more. So enough of the rant. Berkshire born and raised native. I got my private pilot's license at Great Barrington in end of 2021. It has significantly enriched my life. Going to the airport, flying, meeting people. I love it. Please, please, please issue them the permit. It's one of my favorite features of Great Barrington, apart from Berkshire Co-op and the summer events on Railroad Street in the summer. Just please consider that. I will take this decision from the board very personally. Rick, the owner of the airport, is one of the nicest guys you can meet. So yeah, please consider that. Thanks. That's all.
Thank you.
Hi, Joanne Osgood, Sharon, 95 Seacon Crossroad. I'm a neighbor and an abutter to the airport. I like the airport. I don't want to see it go away. My family has been there since 1955. I don't have any real complaints about the noise. I've always considered the airport to be like it's always been known as a hobby airport. But not sure what issuing a special permit really means. Would be very concerned if it meant more commercialization or expansion of the airport. I don't know what it would really mean. I don't want to see a lot of change occur. A few years ago, when they wanted to build some new hangars smack in the middle of the airport field and wanted to put an access road in from Seacon Crossroad, I had big concerns about that. And I would still have concerns about any kind of a new access road from Seacon Crossroad, because it would have been almost right across from where I live. And nobody's mentioned the Green River. The one whole side of the airport property borders on the Green River. And I think, I grew up swimming in the Green River, as cold as it is. And it's really used a lot by local people with hopefully permission from landowners. And I'm concerned about that nothing happens to the Green River because it's a gem in this area. It's one of the last, but not the only clear, cold, unpolluted rivers that we have in this area. So I don't know, I sound like I stand in the middle, but I don't want to see the airport go away because I don't want to see something else. If they went away, what would happen? One of the reasons I like living there is because of the openness, the open fields, the scenic views. And I really enjoy living there. So, but I do have concerns about what does issuing a special permit, what's that really going to entail? Thank you.
So before I go ahead, Mr. Hewer, you're still on the line. One of your clients has their hand up. I allowed you to speak on their behalf, and I'm not allowing anyone else to speak twice. So if you would discuss that with your client, that would be helpful. Council in agreement with me. Thank you. Bruce Palmer. Mr. Palmer, go ahead. You're unmuted. Go back to him. Go back. Glenn, go ahead.
Glenn Bergman, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Glenn Bergman, I'm the interim executive director at Berkshire Agricultural Ventures at 321 Main Street. I am also a resident in Stockbridge. I wrote to the township that I see no reason why there shouldn't be an airport there. It's been there for a long time. The issue for us, or for me, has been when reading the Great Barrington Growing Better document last year and participating in that, I had raised that I think it's 60 acres, I could be wrong, that is used, could be used for agriculture at that location, would fit in perfectly with what this wonderful document that was produced last year that talked to increasing security for farmers and for the community, and has the opportunity to use this land that's there that has been zoned for agricultural use, that it could really be used in a more progressive way by the township and by the owners there. So when I heard about this zoning change, I just thought I would write to the council and provide the possibility of using the agricultural land, not expanding the airport, but actually using that land in a way that has already been written and stipulated in the Growing Better Great Barrington report last year. And in that, I would just suggest that the township look at having that land used in conjunction with the owners for things like agroforestry planting to help sequester more carbon in the ground, and to also provide demonstration projects that I am confident we could get funding for, both from the USDA and from the state, and also from philanthropy together, to help do some projects there around agriculture. It could be used for building jobs in farming, similar to the Intervale program in Vermont near Burlington, where people learn on about 2 acres of land how to farm. And I think that would be a progressive use of the land there, rather than having extended and expanded services there. I cannot address the sound, I cannot address the expansion that's occurred there to the near neighbors, but I would suggest that the township look at this and look at other uses for the land. If it's supposed to be for agricultural purposes, then let's make it agricultural purposes, and let's work together to do that, especially when I believe that funds are available to do some very progressive things around sustainable agriculture in the area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Moulthrop, and Donald Moulthrop was my father. And Dad was a when World War II was in. Okay, 35 Silver Street, Great Barrington, and on the down leg of Landon. Every summer from the age of 6, I would sleep in the sun porch on summer nights, watching the airplanes as they make the final approach. The light would just shine across my bedroom window until even during the nighttime hours, just at the break, I would go into the bedroom there and watch the airplanes land. What a breathtaking thing that I saw year after year after year. Beautiful watching airplanes come in, go out. And planes have flown over my house. I've experienced it for over 50 years. I'm 59 now. But that airport, my father loved flying so much that I had a friend that was from Hungary. And he actually, the first time I met him, had a picture of an airplane cockpit over his bed. And we all used to make fun of him saying, is that your girlfriend or what? But we used to joke about that. And Joel went to the Great Barrington Airport, got his ability to fly. He got his license. He then became an instructor. He is now, his goal when he came here was to fly for Delta Airlines, which is the airlines my father flew for. And Jolt, over the last 15 years now, he is now a captain, and he flies to Reykjavik, and he goes to all these places. Great Barrington Airport has made this immigrant from Hungary who came here, became an American citizen, an international commercial pilot. And it was all because he had a dream of looking up at the clouds and going, I want to fly. Thank you.
Lori, just state your full name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Tammy Harvey. I live at 27 Christian Hill Road in Great Barrington, and I just wanted to read a little something. Warm breezes, summer smells of fresh cut hay, a gentle hum of a small plane. A child races towards the sound, going only so far as he cannot cross the street. The faint motor picks up a bit as it makes its way to the far end of the runway, majestically turning to face the long strip of asphalt, revs the motor and picks up speed. It gets faster and faster. The child holds her breath. Will it never rise, she thinks? Suddenly, as gracefully as a bird, the plane soars and climbs, gaining altitude, banks left, flies overhead as the child she waves, marvels at what she just saw. I know the joy. My name is Tamara, also known as Tammy. I spoke with families whose children also love to watch small aircrafts too. Please help keep the airport to survive and continue to be an asset to our community. Please keep childhood memories and keeping happiness to come for years. Let's have a place for young pilots to learn, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ed Domini, 327 State Road, Great Barrington. We came here when I was 14 years old. And one of the greatest highlights for me when I was a kid was going to the airport with my dad on a Sunday with a couple of beach chairs and a couple of sandwiches and watching planes go up and come down. It was great. There was nothing better. Our town has such a gem there. And in our life today, in our society, we're losing our gems, our beautiful structures, our beautiful fabrics of the community, like the airport. I urge you all to vote for it. Wherever I go, I tell people I'm from Great Barrington. I hear the same thing from everybody. Oh, you have a great town, a great Main Street, great restaurants, and what a great airport. And they'll say it to me 3 times. I just can't emphasize enough how important it is to keep the fabric of the community. We've lost our small pharmacies, Bill's, Melvin's, Rexall. We've lost our small hardwares like Harlan B. Foster's. And I can go on and on, but I'm not going to waste your time. I'm just going to say to all of you, please vote in favor. It's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thomas, full name and address, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Alexander Thomas. I'm at 28 Manville Street. I'd like to speak on behalf of the younger generation. I am a professional pilot now. I fly for a private airline. We do passenger and cargo operations. And I am a former instructor, employee of Great Barrington. I'd like to just state that without the airport being there, I wouldn't be where I am now. And if it does not continue to exist, the younger generation won't have the same opportunity that I have had. And that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you very much.
Evening, I'm Noah Myers, 32 West Sheffield Road. I grew up here in town. I live here. I have my business here. And there's a few points that I want to speak to. And the first is the amazing community that this airport is. So for a few years, I went to the Steiner School, and I remember sitting in the first and the second and third grade classrooms, just longingly watching the planes take off. And I would say probably when I was about 7 or 8, I sort of started to go to the airport regularly, and they couldn't get rid of me. Joe and I grew up together. We used to ride bikes together. My father, every day after work, we'd go to the airport, we'd walk the dog around the grounds and play with him. And the airport is this amazing melting pot of people from all over the region, from all over the country who aggregate here. All kinds of different people from different walks of life, different personalities, different socioeconomic backgrounds. And what makes it so special is that community. And it's a precious thing. Some of my closest friends and really dearest friends I've made through this airport. The airport obviously also gave me the opportunity to become a pilot, which is something I always dreamed of becoming, and now I am. So it's top-notch instructors, top-notch maintenance, maintains this amazing fleet of planes, and it just provides so many opportunities. So that's what I really want to emphasize, is just this amazing community that this airport represents. And the other element that I want to touch on is just, I keep hearing some things about expansion and there's a distrust. And what I know about the individuals who run the airport and the community that makes up the airport is these are all individuals with tremendous integrity and with the best intentions in their hearts for the airport and for the greater community. This is a very safety conscious community. In our flight training, we are trained, ad nauseum, all sorts of different safety procedures. We have noise abatement procedures that we're trained to fly. And these are measures that the airport under its current management has put into place in recent years and increased in recent years to try and counter some of the disappointments of people living nearby. So I think that is an important point. And the last piece is, I hear a lot of support for the airport, which is really a beautiful thing. And I just wonder if the special permit isn't granted with whatever, criteria that you see fit and whatever restrictions. If it's not granted, what does that mean? And if this is turned back over to a judge in Boston and, a group of people with probably deeper pockets than this airport has, what does that mean? Does that mean that the airport is drowned in legal fees? Where does that leave the airport? I don't know. And I don't really want to find out. So all to say, I hope you'll vote in favor of the special permit with restrictions as you see fit, and the restrictions that they've outlined. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Bruce Palmer, you're unmuted. Bruce, you're unmuted, so just speak. If you guys want to know the phone calls on everything. Caroline, Arlene. Okay, you go ahead, just unmute yourself, Sarah.
Mute. Okay, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm Cheryl Line. I'm at 137 Seekonk Crossroad in Great Barrington. And my husband and I have been involved in this for about 7 years of writing lots and lots of information and studying it and appearing before these select board meetings. And it's a major strain in this community for all those who are affected. And it's clear, I think, anybody that is listening to those who are affected, that none of us are anti-aviation. None of us are anti the history of the airport or any of those things. But the airport keeps using that, the history, the emotion of what it has meant to participants, and we respect all of that. However, the question becomes, are the plans, the vision, and the desire of what the airport wants to do, is it appropriate where it is? And it is not appropriate where it is in its greater, to have a small historical airport where people could have a museum there, it could do some little flight trainings, could do something like that. That would be fine, but that's not the ambition of the airport as it has articulated over the last 7 years. And when I think the Kleins were mentioned, well, they haven't been around for the last 7 years, and the people who took over their house have objected to what's been going on. So I don't want to go on and on about it. The strain of, and when somebody says they haven't got all the flight information, I think Michael had some of that sound. When we say it's one thing to have a lawnmower going next to you for 45 minutes or whatever it is, your neighbor, you know, it's a limited duration. It's another to make our houses and our property unlivable in the summer because of planes going over and over and over again. And the people who are affected by the flight pattern say this, people who are further away are not affected. So I could go on, but I just want to voice that when we talk about community, we're saying, what is the vision of Great Barrington for the community? You have it written out, and that gentleman who was talking about the agriculture, it's been written out what the vision and the desire and the caring for this community is meant to be. And I don't feel that the airport as it is respecting or caring for the community that exists.
Thank you very much. And I guess our last, go right ahead.
Thank you. Michael Lee, property owner, 294 Park Street, Housatonic, but live in North Egremont, don't hold it against me.
I may, but not now.
Actually lived just down the road from the airport, and I moved there because I was a pilot, am a pilot, and wanted to be close to the airport, wanted to be, you know, my kids grew up there and we all hung out at the airport. Like Noah said, it's just a great community. It's a beautiful, beautiful community. But what I want to talk about is my connection with Berkshire School. In 2009, one of my sons was going to Berkshire, and the then head of school found out I was a pilot and asked me if I'd be interested in starting an aviation program at Berkshire School. And I said yes. And I've been conducting that program for the last 13 years. About 10 kids a year are lucky enough to take the aviation program, where they're able to take flight lessons at Great Barrington. They get about 6 to 10 hours of flight time. And about 10 kids a year have done that ever since 2009. What's impressed me and what I didn't foresee, even when I took that program, was not only the impact that it has on them as far as learning how to fly an airplane, but it has an impact on their life in a big way. In fact, one student put it to me quite clearly, and it was with a lot of thought, that aviation taught him how to find the nexus between freedom and responsibility. And I see that over and over again. I see young people really learn about life and learn about responsibility from their time at flying an airplane. So that's one piece of it. The other piece of it, some of them have gone on to become very successful pilots, but not only commercial, but we have one young woman who's currently assigned to the fleet in Hawaii in the Navy. She's in the Navy, naval aviator. She flies a helicopter, and a week or two back was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean flying helicopters on and off an aircraft carrier. And she took her first flight at Great Barrington Airport. Her name is Kira von Steinberg. And she's one of many. There's another guy who flies for Prime Air, and another young man who's flying for the Army. So a lot of students from that school have really made well out of their aviation training, but it's also made them better people, I believe. And finally, I would urge the select board to support the existence of the airport as it exists and has existed. As long as I've known the airport in the 40 years that I've been here, I haven't seen any expansion. In fact, I've seen it get less busy than it was maybe 10, 15 years ago. When there were 5 flight instructors there, now there's 2. So it isn't any more busy than it was at any other time, as far as I know. And I live down the road. So thank you.
Thank you very much. One more chance for Bruce Palmer to see if we can get him unmuted. Bruce, go ahead and speak. So I'm going to suggest, since we can't get you unmuted, that maybe you contact town manager and send an email, and he'll get it to all the board members. Now, before we move ahead, what I want to do with the board's indulgence, according to town code, we need to give 5 minutes to proponents and then 5 minutes to opponents. That would wrap up that portion. It would leave it up to us for the next meeting. So I think we're going to take another 10 minutes and do that if everyone's okay with it. Okay, clean everything up. So Mr. Hewer, you just raise your hand and you'll be recognized.
Steve, can I slip out to the bathroom?
Of course.
Thank
We'll take a minute break. Pretty young person.
Sorry.
Hold on like me. So just here, at the height of tonight's meeting, we had 211 virtual attendees. And there you are, and so are I. And we had somewhere around 80 people in this room, so almost 300 people. And I think it's going well, and I appreciate everyone's indulgence as we move ahead.
You had about 40 out in the hallway as well.
Yeah, I can see that, so thank you. I never saw it. I don't know who's the parent on it. So we had a lot of people, I mean, either way. So Mr. Hewer, just give us Attorney Hewer, just give me about 2 minutes, and then we'll give you 5, and then we'll give Attorney Egan. Then we'll move on to the rest of the meeting, which is citizen speak and media time and select board time. And then we'll set, before we're done, we'll set a time and date for our next continuation of the hearing. What? Okay, who said that? Oh, a slave master.
They can fight it. Yeah. And we can control.
Much better, thank you.
Don't want to see it.
Right.
You know, right after that. Okay.
Yeah. Just that. Right, so it makes a very.
Flight of the planes every day, all day, but she's not allowed to speak.
That's correct, so Gordon Powell.
She can send a letter.
Yes, email, we'll read it.
Maybe get a great Barrington color.
I think you've already got that.
Pay personal property tax on the homes and all of that. You don't pay personal property tax on the homes, you rent it out. And do the land. Maybe I. Yeah.
Okay. Get started again. So what we'll do next, we will hear from Attorney Hewer, then Attorney Egan, each 5 minutes. We will set a date for the next meeting, and then we will move ahead with the rest of the agenda. So the public comment portion is concluded, and we'll go with concluding statements. Attorney Hewer, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tag Hewer again, representing Holly Hamer, Mark Festo, and Ann Fredericks. So I appreciate the attention of the board to everyone's comments this evening. I think the important thing, 2 things to me stand out. There's certainly a lot of interest in keeping the airport the way it was. But that's not what the board is being asked to do tonight. We need to focus on the reality of where the airport is today, which is very different than the airport that Walt ran from 1940 up until about 20 years ago. It's a very different airport. You've heard people say that tonight with a lot of really compelling evidence. People are concerned, longstanding and serious concerns about the noise, about the traffic safety dangers. You've heard about people who are seeing planes buzzing Seacon Crossroad where people are driving and walking constantly. You've heard about concerns about not complying with flight patterns. You've concerns about noise that is constant. You just heard a speaker say it's not about just like having a lawnmower next door for 45 minutes. It's all the time. When you see the conditions that the airport has requested, they want to go until 8 o'clock at night. They want to go until 7 o'clock during the summer, unless there's a student flight that's being taken. That's the concern that many people are saying. The airport has gone from, according to the Edge's article, and I have no reason to disbelieve this, 1,200 flight school flights just 3 years ago to over 2,000 flight school flights, close to 3,000 flight school flights as of last year. That's a huge increase in a very short period of time. Again, there's also the issue about environmental impacts. You heard concerns from the chair of the Board of Health. You heard concerns about the Green River. You heard concerns about what is this expansion, if it does expand, because again, the special permit being requested is just to make it an aviation field. And under zoning law, you can do anything you wish within the constraint that you're given. So if you want to build a residential structure, you can build a small house, you can build a big house, as long as your lot allows it, and it's a single family, you've got a lot of leeway. And that's what the airport is asking for here, a lot of leeway. They're asking you to trust them. But we know that they've had difficulty providing information about how many flights they have. You'd think that would be basic information that we would have, but we've gone for years and we still don't know how many exact flights there are. We don't know about what the noise levels are. We know that they're significant, but they say that they have protocols. We don't see them being followed. They have flight patterns that they instruct all their pilots to take. We know that they're not being taken because we have people who are on the road, Seacon Cross and the others in the area. We're seeing these planes constantly fly over their house that aren't on flight track requirements and flight patterns. And then we see people who are having these flights over their house all the time. That's not the way that a responsible neighbor treats its other neighbors. And again, I'd remind the board that 2 years ago, the board made a finding that this is an airport in a residential area. It's not a residential area in a commercial industrial area. Right? It's the residence area and the character of the residence area that's meant to be protected by the zone. Lastly, I'd just say this isn't a popularity contest. Right? It's about whether BAE has met the legal requirements under the bylaw that apply to every property owner in town to obtain a special permit. And again, the law is very clear, it's unambiguous. The airport is the one that bears the burden of proof to provide the evidence that it's entitled to the special permit. It's not the other way around. When people say who has the burden here, it actually is the airport. They need to show that they've met all the six special permit requirements. They need to show that they've met section 7.2. They need to show that they met section 6.4, which says that you can't operate a use in a manner that has excessive noise or other adverse impacts on the community. And it says you can't measure, you have to measure those impacts from where they're greatest, even if it's not at the property line. We have a significant issue here because we're competing between nostalgic, what the airport used to be, and the future, what the airport could be and what they're asking for. That's the concern here. And again, we just don't believe that the airport has met the legal requirements that are in front of the select board in the bylaw to be authorized to have a special permit at this location. There may be locations in town in the R4 district where you could grant a special permit that would not be objectionable under section 7.2. It just so happens that this particular location in this particular neighborhood is not one of them. We would urge you to vote to deny the permit.
Thank you, Attorney Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few clarifying points. First and foremost, I think it's interesting that Attorney Hewitt is telling folks who have lived in town for tens and tens of years what Walt's vision was and how it's different now than what it was when we had a number of folks stand up and speak quite to the opposite. More importantly, several folks have talked about what happens if the special permit is granted. I'd like to talk for a minute about what happens if the special permit is denied and the plaintiffs are successful in Vancouver. We don't think they will be, but if they were, the clock does get turned back to 1932. Don't know who said it, but it was very artful and very accurate. If the airport wouldn't be killed by turning that back to 1932, it would certainly be crippled. Because if you look at Attorney Huber's complaint, what he describes happening in 1931 is an onion field with a plane. And if you turn that clock back to 1932 and that's what's there, it's crippled and then it dies. I would also like to point out the hours. Again, those are, we came voluntarily offering hours. That ability doesn't exist unless we come in good faith to this board. It bothers me quite a bit, knowing Rick Solon, Jim Jacobs, Joe Solon, Kerry Anderson and others. When Attorney Huber and others get on Zoom, they get in this room and they besmirch the good name of that airport. And they talk about not being able to comply with this, that, and the other thing. No one has ever presented one scintilla of evidence to this board or any other board in this town that suggests that that man has in any way not complied with exactly what this town has asked him to do. And I think it's shameful. We can debate the merits, we can debate the law, but nobody should sit here and take pot shots at this property owner. I think it's disgraceful. It's particularly disgraceful for a member of the bar to do so. With respect to environment, Attorney Huber is correct. The applicant does have the burden of proof, but I guarantee you, as sure as I'm standing here, Attorney Huber works for an excellent firm, he's well educated. If he had any evidence that there was lead poisoning or water poisoning, I guarantee this board, the first thing he would do is he would present that to this board. Right, do not be afraid, do not be scared of the great unknown. If we were so scared about the great unknown, we would never leave our houses in the morning. This airport has done everything it can do to protect the environment vis-a-vis a double-walled fiberglass underground storage tank, the same storage tanks that are used at gasoline stations. I just want to talk real briefly. I don't want anyone's eyes to roll back in their head with legal procedure, but what happened last Wednesday was the airport asked the land court to hit pause on the land court proceeding. And the reason it did that is because it said to the land court, Judge Piper, we ask you to pause this land court proceeding while this select board takes up the issue of this special permit. Attorney Huber argued vociferously. I have the transcript of the hearing, which I'm happy to leave, and I think I will leave vociferously against that. Judge Piper, paraphrasing, ruled that if the grant of a permit didn't render moot the subject matter entirely of the suit, then it certainly had the potential to render most of it moot. And the judge also put a April 30th expiration date on that. So that's not to try and put this on this board and saying you've got to rule by April 30th, not in the least. I just think it's informative to suggest that the land court, the chief justice of the land court, has seen fit to say, we're going to hit pause on this land court proceeding while the Great Barrington Select Board takes this under consideration. And that's, that's about all I have. I think.
That's perfect. You just hit 5 minutes, so that was perfect time.
The applicant has met its burden of proof as set forth in the application here this evening. And if this board has any questions, we're happy to respond to those at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Attorney.
Thank you.
April 30th is not unreasonable, although it's a weekend because one of our members is not seeking re-election and we need to clear this off of our docket. I'm going to suggest a date for our next continuation of the hearing. And it's the date we don't have a meeting, it's March 13th. On Monday, 6 o'clock. I know our attorney can make it. And I'll check with the attorney.
We don't have one that
We don't
day?
have one that day.
I already got one penciled in,
So
so I guess
now
I'm
you're
good.
there.
I guess I'm
Just like
good.
it. Garfield, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Lee? Okay, so I need a motion to continue the public hearing to Monday, March 13th, 6 p.m. Town Hall and virtual.
I make a motion to continue the public hearing to March 13th at 6 p.m. at Town Hall and virtual.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Eric?
Aye.
Garfield?
Aye.
Ed? Aye. Lee?
Aye.
And I. Thank you, everyone. We will continue with our meeting. You're welcome to stay for a few more minutes. Citizen speak time. Does anyone have anything else they want to bring towards this board? Yeah, I'm just. We do this real. Everyone would just take the conversation about where it's going.
We take that.
Give it one time. Go ahead, Dan.
Do I have to introduce myself again?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, all right. A completely different topic. This relates to my electric bill. I don't know how long this has been in effect. And I had to educate myself about the fact that the town was able to somehow impose on my electric bill a supplier not of my choosing. I didn't understand how that could happen. I have since educated myself and found out, yeah, I mean, my electric bill from the supplier. I talked about the utility, I talked about National Grid, from the supplier went from 10 cents to 22 cents. Granted, it's cheaper than the 33 cents that National Grid charges, but it was still 22 cents and more than double my rate. Or why there was some increase in my bill. So I went online and quickly found a cheaper supplier. But how is it? I don't understand. How is it that the town is able to impose that rate on my personal bill? What allows that sort of process to happen?
We won't get into it all now.
Okay, I
But
mean,
it was a
I'm
lot-
looking for
But,
detailed
but
explanation.
if you want to sit down with either Mark or Chris,
Okay,
there is an explanation, and it is cheaper than National Grid, and it was as cheap as we could go with the criteria we had.
but
And we knew it was gonna go up.
And you
right,
can still.
and yes, it
opt
did
for
go
that.
up, but I was able to, within a matter of minutes, find a rate that was more than 6-7 cents cheaper. You know, at that instant, I mean, it switched over, it's taken a while for it to take effect and so on and so forth, you know, so, you know.
And I appreciate it.
But yeah, it's bothersome. I think it's by a lot of people who don't understand that that's what happened. I know a lot of people who complain about this jump in their electric bill. And if it's being imposed on them, I mean, these rates are even cheaper now, but if you go with what the town has allowed to happen, you're locked into that for a year.
You can opt out.
Well, you can opt out. But what I'm saying is,
I
some people
understand.
don't know that.
Yeah, no.
So I did.
Thank you, I appreciate your
Okay.
concern. Anyone else, either virtually or? Seeing no one else. Select board time, Eric,
Nothing.
Garfield,
Nothing.
thank you, media. By unanimous consent, we are adjourned, thank you very much.